David. David.
He's falling in a beautiful swirling pattern.
David.
Hello, welcome to the David Wells Experiment. I'm your host, David Wells. I'm low-key wondering if I need to do that every time. In future installments, I may just omit it completely, but for now, I'll keep doing it. And the only reason I bring that up is because sometimes I just want to get into it. I might do that. But anyway, I'm currently waiting for my computer to clean itself up. I didn't initiate a function. I was busy over there. I say that like you guys are in the room with me. I recorded a podcast. I was just laying on my bed, talking into the lav mic, and just, as is always the case, just shooting the breeze, saying whatever came to mind. And yeah, it's a podcast. And I felt like I was really getting into this one because I wasn't up at like 1 in the morning, or it wasn't right before I go to work. Speaking of work, I got to leave early today because, I said this in the other one. Some kid in one of my hours, I'm like, today I feel like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So I've got to do something, otherwise I feel anxious. So again, this is one of those things that I'm doing, so I can say, oh, I've got more things that I can do than things that I'm just obligated to do. I think another one of those things could be, another thing that I could do is try to make another video game on GDevelop. So that's one thing. I have Unreal Engine or Unity on my laptop, but I'm just a little hesitant to use that simply because I've used GDevelop and I know how to do stuff with it. And also, I don't know how much Unity would just drag on. I could also try to learn how to use Pico 8, which is a very old style game engine / virtual system. One thing I'm also interested in is another thing I'm interested in is, I don't know if it's Facebook Marketplace or if it's on this neighborhood app I've got, but it's some sort of marketplace on one of those. And I see, it's funny, it's kind of become this thing of mine where I will go on the marketplaces for these and try to look up some sort of find, like, oh my gosh, this is on sale for that price, what a deal. And on one of these, I forget which one it is, I find an old computer, and it's like, if I was more technically, I always think about, do I want to get that just for the novelty of saying like, oh, I've got an old computer? Because I do look up old tech videos all the time. And it's like, do I actually want to try to... Do I actually want to try to get that, even though I'm not so technically minded? I mean, I'm actually on that app right now. I'm kind of doing this until I can till I can get my laptop up and running. And I think one of the machines I saw on one of those marketplaces was an old IBM computer from like the 80s back in the day. Um, oh wow, somebody's selling 8-track cassettes. Oh, I found it. Apparently, it is an IBM PC Junior system. Let's see, it says IBM PC Junior system with manuals, including chiclet keyboard, due to age, sold as is for $100. Part of me wonders, okay, excuse me. Part of me wonders, how interesting would it be to look that up? I'm actually going to look it up right now. IBM PC. I kind of don't know why I never thought to. Kind of don't know why I didn't think to do this in the first place. Like, look up videos on YouTube. It's sort of a different thing than. I feel like retro computers are different than retro video games. Because with retro video games, you can think, okay, I can play a game on this. But with retro computers, I think you've got to really have a much more intent goal. If I was like into old programming languages, like I'm sort of curious, but I don't have like a very fine knowledge about them. I could see myself trying to write old programs on old stuff, but I don't know. So I'm watching the. It's funny, I talk about getting an old PC, but at the same time, I'm also like frustrated with my relatively new laptop operating quickly or not. I think one of the earliest compute laptops or computers I did anything on was my dad had some sort of he had some sort of computer and it could print stuff and I forget what it was, but I think he had it all the way up until say the early 2000s. And when I remember thinking about it, what made it cool was just this will show my age, but that you could type stuff. Um, I did not have a very, I didn't have a very like computer centric household. If we ever had computers, it would be something that a family member gave us. I am pretty sure that we were always like a couple years behind. I think I'll probably make an offer if I do go ahead and buy that IBM PC computer off of. It turns out it's my like the neighborhood app. It would be if after I'm done watching this video, and I don't know what kind of games they would have on it or what kind of Or who knows, maybe one of those things of like, have it until you have enough knowledge to do something with it. Gosh, floppy drives. I think the first computer system that I owned myself, which I got back, I think in 2005, 2006, I think it might have had a floppy drive, which isn't such a crazy thing because floppy drives floppy drives began to disappear in the 2000s. I know that Steve Jobs and Apple, they really jumped ahead on that one when I think they developed the iMac. They made the decision we're not going to have a floppy drive because information with storage devices were increasing so much that they were like, yeah, the floppy drive is going to be old hat pretty quickly. And they got criticized for that, but they wound up being right. It's funny, I had such little knowledge of computers growing up that I remember when I graduated high school, one of the things my dad did was he had me take some community lessons or whatever. So I was doing something. And one of the things that we signed up for was computer classes. And I was a lot of older people. And in a classroom filled with like a lot of older people. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they all kept saying, I thought younger kids are supposed to know stuff. And now you could say it was because I was homeschooled, but I went to high school at a private Christian school, so they didn't teach me anything about computers. I better not talk about them, otherwise I'm just going to get bitter really quick, really soon. But again, one of the things that... So apparently this video, or this IBM PC Junior, I think it has like a joystick that you can get. I don't know that the chick who is selling this one, I don't think she's got one, but honestly, if there's gonna... It would be interesting, though, to fire this thing up and operate some old tech. Like, that would be interesting. I was at Half Price Books earlier, and gosh, I'm watching the video and they mention MS-DOS. Like, I'm sort of thinking I won't get this thing. Like, if I was going to go after some retro tech, I might get like an actual old video game system. I came very close not too long ago, maybe a couple weeks, of getting a PlayStation 1. A guy on Facebook was selling it. Never got back to me though. Let's see. I'm remembering old computer games and video games I used to play back in the day. Let's see. I've got to see. I'm looking. Okay. Apparently, there's this old computer game called Monster Bash. It was on some sort of old video game system. The artwork makes me think Commodore 64 or one of those. But anyway, I feel like it'd be better. I feel like I could get old tech if I was more technically minded. But yeah, I don't know enough. So going back, and maybe I'm repeating myself, but I think the things that I can do to add more on my plate that are voluntary, doing the podcasts, and maybe making video games and studying 3D animation, even if all I do is watch the videos. I probably ought to come up with something else. Could maybe be writing a script. Like, I bet if I made a short film, that would go so far, even if it wasn't that long. I just need to come back to life. Kind of like that Kanye song. I think this video I'm watching is like nearly, oh yeah, it's just about over. Um, Monster Bash. I'm looking up that old game. Apparently this guy, John Tron, he has a review on that game. I remember like when I would go to other kids' house that had like a Super Nintendo or an NES, I'm like, that is so cool. I wish I had one of those. Um, and I know I've repeated this like so many times before, but I remember when my dad really was opposed to video games for the longest time, but one time he thought about letting us get an Atari, and I think it was the 2600. Might have been the 52 or the 7800. I forget, but anyway, this was like a huge deal of like learning how to figure out how to hook it up to the TV, because the funny thing about the Atari was it was made for hooking up to an old, like, you had to hook it up to like the antenna on a television. There wasn't any real, when the Atari came out, there really wasn't any input or output technology to speak of on television. The TV antenna was the closest you got, and it was so hard to figure that out. I don't know that we ever got it working. And I remember as we were trying to hook it up, because I thought, okay, a video game system, that could be cool. But I was looking at these video games, and I had this sinking feeling this might not be that cool, and I am not sure that I would really have any fun on this system. So I really didn't fight to get it, because I guess part of me thought was, if this happened to be our first video game system, we were going to be stuck with it for a while. And I'm so glad I didn't indulge that or try to put up a fight for it, because as it turns out, a couple years later, I wound up getting a Game Boy Pocket, which operated on two AA batteries, I believe. No, not double A's. It wasn't two double A's. It was four AAA batteries, and it had about a lifespan of, say, 10 hours. I'm really impressed with the Game Boy Color, though, because the Game Boy Color takes two double A's, and it seems to last for a while. So kudos to them. What else? Oh, yeah. So anyway, and then a couple years later, we get the PlayStation 1, which I loved that thing. I would probably have been glued to that if my parents had gone and gotten us a separate TV just for playing that. That would have been amazing. Um, I've thought about why kids love video games and they hate school. I mean, it's fun, that's the thing, but oh gosh. I just saw the dude on this video do something ridiculous. But anyway, dang, what was I saying? Anyway, would have been the most amazing thing if I got to have a TV just for the PlayStation. Um, would have been great, but you would have never pried me away from it. Oh, yeah, kids, schools, video game. Video games are fun, school's not. But I think the thing is, if you ask some kids what their favorite subject is, they get different answers. And I think the reason why kids have some subjects they like and some subjects they don't is because I think the subjects they like are the subjects where they feel like they're doing something, like they're accomplishing something. Um, but anyway, like I know that for me that was the case. Man, as I'm remembering schoolwork, it's like I'm remembering sitting in class and I remember diagramming sentences. I'm remembering learning how to diagram sentences. And it felt like a more boring version of what Schoolhouse Rock taught us. What else? I remember they made us read Red Badge of Courage, and that was just dry. And there were so many of these like little revelations like, oh, it's his best friend that he grew up with. And I'm like, when did this happen? I had to have I was so disengaged with the story that it was like, if my teacher hadn't said something, I wouldn't have known that that was happening. I mean, I might have been reading this in French. That's how just disengaged I was with the whole thing. And don't get me started on Spanish. We never really had a good Spanish teacher. And I remember they tried to teach us Latin. There was only one teacher who was sort of cool that taught us Latin. That was in like, I think ninth grade. Or eighth grade, I really forget. I know there was one grade we learned where we just didn't learn that. I think they taught us Greek one year because a lot of the Bible was written in, or the New Testament was written in Greek. So that was the rationale behind that. I'm going to need to get some new AAA batteries for this one recorder I've got because it is running on low. I might have to do that tonight. But anyway, I'm sure I've got AAA batteries somewhere. But yeah, I probably ought to start. I've got to come up with a name for this thing of adding more to things I get to do rather than like just having something that I have to do. I think I'll call them upgrades. I need to keep thinking of more upgrades I can do. So one of them is the podcast. One of them is studying 3D animation, even if it's just watching tutorials. What else? Writing a script and shooting something and making a video game. I could do a lot. Just something to keep making, just to get momentum. So anyway, oh, my computer's working now. Well, anyway, this has been the David Wells Experiment. Have an absolutely super day, and I hope all your dreams come true. Okay, bye.